Tracy here. I just wanted to say hello and welcome to everyone. I'm really excited that you're here, and thank you, Dr. Doug, for joining us with all the issues we had. um, if you guys don't know who he is a lifetime athlete. I wrote a little bio here. This could have went on for like 30 minutes and so but I had to condense it here.
Thank
He's
you.
a lifetime athlete and raw fooder since 1978, an advisor to world-class and motivated athletes and trainers from around the globe. He's worked professionally with top performers in every sport, and the one that stood out to me was, of course, Martina Navratilova. I was like, wow, we are honored. And there's pro basketball players, and wrestlers and soccer players. He
I
also
know how I found out about you. Have you ever heard of a guy on YouTube that did Raw Healing Mastery named Kevin Winder?
Raw Healing Mastery.
Yeah, he went down to Ecuador in a place called Fruit Haven. And
Yeah, I know Fruit Haven, but I don't think I know Kevin.
he mentioned you. He was drinking coconut water once, and he said, I'm sure Dr. Graham's 80-10-10ers are probably hating on me right now. And I never knew what he meant by that at the time. I don't know. Maybe I've got it twisted. But I remember him mentioning Dr. Graham and
Yeah,
80-10-10ers.
that's interesting. That's interesting because I think coconut water is spectacular.
I
Yeah,
think
maybe I have it wrong. Maybe he's, you know what I mean? But I remember in that moment, he mentioned you. So I said, 80-10-10ers, what's that about? And this was like 5 years ago. So
There you go.
that's how popular it is. You don't even know people are talking about you, right? He
Well,
also,
it's a funny thing. I was at a festival, um, I got to think it was 13 years ago. I was at a festival, and it was one of those unusual fruit festivals where it was the first ever in their country. It was out in Eastern Europe, and it was the first ever fruit festival, but it was also unusual because the organizers told the media about the event, and the media came. Like, that's so rare. They hardly ever come.
right.
And but there was a bunch of different reps from various newspapers, and some cameras and whatnot, and it was pretty amazing. But they'd never heard of raw food. They'd never heard hardly of vegan. They didn't have any idea what 80-10-10 was. So they had some good questions. But one of the questions, which was innocent enough, was when people say raw food, do they actually mean 80-10-10? And I could only smile and look at her and say, not yet.
Right. I love it.
Not yet. But nowadays, pretty much, if people are talking about raw food, they're talking about 80-10-10. So it's
Yeah.
kind of cool. It's kind of cool. I'm
yeah,
glad the two came together.
And it makes so much sense because I've been raw, and it's kind of like I feel like people go on this long struggle to do raw, and like you mentioned before, and then once you do it that way, it works for you. It seems like you become satisfied. And for those of us watching, who probably not many are, that don't know what 80-10-10 is, that is, he's the author of many books on health. That one is just one of them, and we'll list your other books too, including Perpetual Health 365 that you just wrote. 80-10-10, like you said, that's why I was like, he is a legend in the raw world. I was so excited that you joined us, and as into as raw food as I am. And could you explain to everyone just what 80-10-10 is for someone who may not know?
Sure. Well, 80-10-10 is a phrase that a lot of vegan doctors have used over the years. And what it means is that we're talking about how much carbohydrate, how much fat, and how much protein you're consuming. And typically, protein is listed as the middle number. So it's kind of the seesaw. And in a lot of diets, both mainstream and not so traditional, in a lot of diets, we either alter the amount of fat consumed or we alter the amount of carbohydrate consumed in order to have something happen. Usually it's about weight loss, but it's not always. And uh, and to me, I was on a separate journey, and the journey was as an athletic person trying to help people who were healthy to do
Right.
even better. Look, I've worked with plenty of sick people, lots of incurables, lots of people who were hopeless, lots of, helped lots of hopeless people to regain their health. And I enjoy that and I appreciate it. And it's very touching every single time. But I just get more of a kick out of working with athletes. I really like working with athletes. I like working with people who are willing to give their all towards a concerted goal, a
Yeah.
concerted effort towards a focused goal. And they're, I mean, I remember I was working with a bodybuilder one time and he goes, look, if you tell me that the only thing I'm allowed to eat for dinner is broccoli, then I'll just make a pile of broccoli and eat it if that will help me be better in my sport.
Right.
Like he didn't care. He says, I
That's
don't
how
even like
athletes are.
broccoli.
Athletes are go-getters and they're some of the most positive people on the planet.
Well, they just have a different reason for doing what they're doing
Yeah.
than I'm sick and tired of hurting or I want to get
I know
out,
that's
I
part
want
of
to I
it.
want to have a little more energy. It's not like that. They've got a different drive.
Yeah.
So I just like that. They're willing to give me their all and in return I give them my all. So the what ended up happening was I'm on this raw food journey trying to figure out how to make raw foods work. And I asked all the raw food leaders in the world, there were four of them at the time. And, and I asked all four people who were known to, have something to do with raw food. And I said, if you were going to design a diet for an athlete, would it be cooked or raw or some combination thereof? And all four of them said, no, no, it would be a raw diet. An athlete's going to do better on a raw foods than on any other foods. I
Right.
go, well, that's really nice to hear because that's sort of the conclusion I'm coming to also in my study. All the animals eat raw and they don't tend to have the kind of sicknesses, the chronic and the debilitative and the degenerative. They don't have all that stuff generally. Anyway, so I said, next question is, okay, now you all agree it should be a raw food diet. What would that diet look like? And all four of them said the identical answer. They all said, no idea. I got no idea what that diet would look like because we don't work with those people. We work with the sickest of the sick, helping them get well. We work with the hopeless. We work with people who've tried everything else and now out of desperation they're finally willing to try a raw food diet because nothing else worked. But that's the
Right.
only reason they went there was because they were so ill, so sick for so long, suffering so badly that they're willing to even eat a raw food diet, And I wasn't perceiving of it as that way. I was thinking like, wow, we're designed to eat a raw food diet. When a cat sees its natural food, its mouth waters.
Yeah.
When I see a Christmas tree just all donned up with all those ornaments, it's really beautiful, right? Like it's spectacular. And when I see a fruit tree with all that colorful fruit just hanging on it, it reminds me of a Christmas tree, to be quite honest. It just looks like ornaments hanging off the tree. It's so
Yeah.
rich with
True.
food. So to me, I'm going, wow, this isn't a penalty, eating raw food. This isn't the price. This is the prize. This is the winning lottery ticket. I got so excited and they're going, we have no idea, but it would be raw. So I looked around and I looked around, and I looked around, and eventually I did what my third grade teacher told me. And she said, eat an apple a day. It'll keep the doctor away. And and then my health coach in seventh grade, he said athletes need to eat more fruits and vegetables. And my high school health teacher said fruits and vegetables are good for you. And my gymnastics coach said you got to eat your fruits and vegetables as well as everything else. And then Joe Rosati was my coach in my senior year, and he said you got to eat fruits and vegetables. And then in college, I took nutrition every semester in college, and and they all said fruits and vegetables are good for. I finally decided to try fruits and vegetables. It's like wasn't a new idea. So I looked around, and what I found was that the the really cutting edge vegan doctors were all talking about this 80-10-10 thing. And so I looked into what that was, and what I found out was that if we look at what all the long-lived people in the world eat, you don't really come up with anything that they all eat this or they all eat, there's some secret. There wasn't. But they all eat relatively little fat. Relatively little fat. They eat a lot of carbohydrates. And then I started looking at, I had a good fortune of a man contacted me about helping some Kenyan runners, some Kenyan marathon runners, and I got to find out what the Kenyan marathon runners eat. And it turns out that the whole Kenyan running team, they eat together, they eat the same stuff, and almost all of it is carbohydrate. They eat a little fat, they don't shun a little butter here and there, but they're not vegans. But they eat almost all carbohydrate. And then I looked at what all the animals that are built like us were called anthropoid primates, the monkeys that don't have tails. And all of them eat a diet that is heavily predominated by fruits and vegetables. The littler ones eat more fruit, and the bigger ones eat more vegetables because just can't put a 500-pound gorilla up in a fruit tree. It just doesn't work. So they eat a little more vegetable matter because they have to. But when you put them in a zoo, put them in captivity, they'll always take the fruit first. They want more fruit. They just can't access it in nature. So over and over and over, I'm seeing, wow, the long-lived people eat fruit, or eat carbohydrates. The performers eat carbohydrates. The animals that are built like us eat carb. I wonder what would happen if I actually did what all the other vegan doctors are saying. But let me put some time into turning this into a raw food diet, because to me, the raw food diet makes the sense. Right. That's where I wanted to be. So I go, okay, I want a raw food diet that's carbohydrate based. How am I going to do that? And that's how I ended up with 80-10-10. So 80-10-10 is, to answer your exact question, 80-10-10 is about the caloronutrients. It's about what are called the macronutrients now. When I went to school, macronutrients were a different thing. But the macronutrients today are called carbohydrate, fat, and protein. Those are the only 3 calorie sources, unless you want to consider alcohol not carbohydrate. But it is carbohydrate. It's just been changed. It's been fermented. So we have carbohydrate, fat, and protein are our calorie sources. And it turns out if we look all the way around the world at all the people on all the diets all the way around the world, the average protein intake is about 9 to 11%, depending on what kind of country you live in. But somewhere around 9 to 11% is what's eaten all the way around the world, with a little exception in a few Western countries where people are now starting to eat protein powder out of a can and really skewing the average. But if we take out the protein powder out of a can out of the equation, what we find is the average person's eating around 10% of their calories from protein. So I didn't mess with that, even though we know that there's no such thing as a protein shortage anywhere in the world. The only shortage we have, some people don't get enough food, but nobody's suffering from protein deficiency. And there's not even a name for a condition what would a protein deficiency be called? They don't even have a name for that. So, but if you don't get enough food, that's called marasmus. And if you don't get enough protein because you didn't get enough food, that's marasmatic kwashiorkor. What a mouthful. But even that, all you got to do is just give a person food. You don't have to give them more protein. Just give them more real food. They'll get enough protein. There's enough protein in fruits and vegetables for all the animals on Earth that eat fruits and vegetables to do just fine, including us. And as adults, our need for protein is so low because protein is primarily used for growth. Well, mother's milk is only like 6% protein, and babies grow on that. They grow spectacularly well on that. In the end, I got 80-10-10, and what made it mine was two things. One, I took 80-10-10 and took the principles of that and said, how would we do this on a raw food diet? And two, I changed the name to the 80-10-10 diet. So now, rather than just talking about 80-10-10, talk about the 80-10-10 diet, which is the name of the book. The concept has to do with eating a diet predominated by carbohydrates. And if you want to do it as a raw food diet, then it's predominated by fruit in terms of calories, fruits and vegetables almost the same amount in terms of volume. And that's where the bulk of everything comes from. And we don't get into I don't get too caught up in the terminology wars. Is a tomato a fruit or a vegetable? I don't even want to worry about it, but I do have a distinction. The distinction is, according to botany, tomato is a fruit, but in your kitchen, it's a vegetable. And either way, I'm eating plenty of tomatoes and I'm not worried
I
about
love tomatoes.
it.
My
But
favorite.
so I end up with the 80-10-10 diet and added to that, because my whole thing has been about health and performance. And the thing that I learned very early on in my career is that a healthy athlete or a healthy person will always outperform an equally talented but less healthy person or less healthy athlete. And so I made the book more about the creation of overall health and include the concepts important for our health, fresh air and clean water and sufficient sleep and sunshine and emotional poise and all the other creative elements that are essential for us to be at our best. They're called the substances, the forces, the influences, and the conditions that we require for health. And it was interesting because I talked to a man who lives just down the road from me, and for the last 47 years, he's been growing tomatoes under glass. And he grows what at least some articles have said, some prizes have said, are the best tomatoes in England. He's growing spectacular tomatoes. And I asked him, how come your tomatoes are so good, Gary? And he said, I give my tomatoes everything they need. So I thought it was a good answer. But a couple weeks later, I was in Seattle, Washington. I met this guy named Art, who's been farming organically on the same piece of property for 52 years, on the same farm for 52 years. He's been growing organic food. And I mean, you want to eat melon that you're going to remember, eat Art's melon. It's just the best melons in the world.
Okay.
And I just said, Art, like, I've tried a lot of melon. How come your melons are so good? And he said, I give my melons everything they need. And the words just rang right back because Gary had just said that to
Right.
me a couple weeks prior. And I go, oh, and how do we nurture kids? We give them everything they need. And how do we raise prize plants? We give them everything they need. How do you raise a prize hog? Oh, we give it everything it needs. And how are we going to create the best athletes? Well, if we give them everything they need and don't give them anything they don't need, the idea of everything in moderation falls away, but instead, everything that's good for us in moderation, and that which isn't good for us, isn't self-constructive, we just avoid entirely.
Right.
We start living self-constructive lifestyle. So I wrote about lifestyle, the self-constructive lifestyle in my book, and then explained how to implement a diet of raw fruits and vegetables into a lifestyle that's the prize.
Right.
So people say it's a hardship, and I go, well, no, actually, the hardship is being sick.
Right.
Being healthy is not a hardship. Being healthy is the prize, and I'm worth paying the price of healthful living, even if that means I have to go against the stream of society here a teeny bit now and then. Even if it means I don't participate in all of the self-destructive habits that I know a lot of my friends think is a good time. To me, it's not a good time to be maybe when I was 20,
Right.
maybe. But I got to a point where I realized I wanted to raise my awareness, not dull it. I wanted to improve my memory, not crush it. I wanted to get better at learning, not dumb myself down. I wanted to become injury-free, illness-free, accident-free. I wanted to improve the coordination of my tongue, of my body, of my mind, of all my senses, my ability to correlate things. I wanted to learn better, and the way I can do that is taking really good care of myself. There's just no way around it.
Exactly. So many people just, think that things happen, with their body, and you're definitely proof. And, that all these myths about, athletes, they need meat, and, that there are so many of us out here, like, that are suffering with different health conditions. And then I talk to people like yourself who do raw food, and it's, you're living a quality of life, that is different than everyone else. But people, like you said, don't understand it. And truly, if we get right back to our roots, once you clear all the other stuff out, that is really what you truly crave. I've found, the fruit, like you said, the tree of fruit is more appealing to me than any type of cooked food now. That, like you said, that wasn't me, maybe 10 years ago before I discovered this. It's just like, really, that's what, as humans, we were meant to eat. And I love how you've pieced different information together and kind of put it in a nice, in a nice way for all of us to understand. Like, even what you said about giving the fruits what they need, we're no different than a tree or a fruit. So, and when you say carbohydrates, can you explain to people, because I don't think people understand just how good of carbohydrates fruits are. That's the bulk of what, like, I eat for carbs. Is that your philosophy too?
So there's two kinds of carbohydrates. There's simple carbohydrates and there's complex carbohydrates. The simple carbohydrates are sugars, always, and they're called sugars. And there's a bunch of different sugars from lactose and glucose and dextrose and maltose and glucose and sucrose, and there's all kinds of sugars. They all end, as you might have noticed, with OSE. And all the sugars are important to us because every cell of our entire body is fueled by sugar.
Wow.
I mean, this is magnificent. This is just magnificent. The story is profound because there's a professional term in the world of nutrition that's called essential. Now, it's got its own meaning in the world of nutrition, different from anywhere else in society, when we say the word essential anywhere else in society, it means we need it. It's essential. But when we talk about nutrients that are essential, what we mean is we need it and we can only get it from our food, as opposed to non-essential nutrients that we also need because they're nutrients, we need them, but we can manufacture our own from other things. So in the world of proteins, there are certain amino acids that are essential and others that we can manufacture. In the world of fats, there's certain fats we can manufacture and some that we must get from our food. In the world of carbohydrate, there are no essential carbohydrates. And people who don't understand the difference between the use of the word essential, meaning it's important, you got to have it, versus the nutritional word essential, meaning that you got to have it and you can only get it from your food.
Okay.
They go, well, if carbohydrates are so important, how come there's no essential carbohydrates, Dr. Graham? And I go, because essential means you can only get it from your food. In fact, the way we're set up is carbohydrates are so important that no matter what we eat, we can convert it into carbohydrate. We always have a strategy. The body always has a strategy for converting what we eat into carbohydrate, which is how we maintain blood sugar levels all the time, no matter what we eat. So carbohydrates come in two kinds. They come in simple and complex. The simple ones are all sugars and they all taste sweet. That's how you know it's a simple carbohydrate. If something tastes sweet, it's a simple carbohydrate. So whether that's fructose or whether that's glucose or whatever it is, if there's an element of sweet, it's got sugar in it. It's got simple carbohydrate. But there's also complex carbohydrate, and there's a whole bunch of different kinds of complex carbohydrate, just like there's a whole bunch of different kinds of sugar. And the complex carbohydrates are so complex that human beings cannot digest them. We have no way to digest complex carbs. Now, our microbes in our large intestine can break down the complex carbs a little bit, but it's not us, it's our microbes. We don't have the power to digest them. And only a little bit can they do that. So for us to eat complex carbs is an interesting thing, because if we look it up in the dictionary, the complex carbs are often referred to as starches. The complex carbs that are used as food are often referred to as starches. And if we look up starch in a dictionary, I can pretty well quote that. It's a form of sugar, but it's many, many, many sugars put together into a complicated folded up package that we not only cannot digest it, but since we can't digest it at all, we can't even taste it. So complex carbs, starches, are always tasteless, which is a fascinating concept. Once we cook them, yes, we break them down enough. We do what's called dextrinize them. We break them down, and then we can access them better. No question. But in their natural state, starches are tasteless. And so it makes us think, 100 or 200 years ago or longer, maybe even, when people were being punished in jail. Oh, you have a prisoner and he was a very bad person, and so he's going to be punished. And the warden says, throw him in the hole and give him bread and water for 30 days.
Right.
Being given bread was punishment because they know that when you're on starch only, you do what's called fail to thrive. Without vegetables on a starch-only diet, we fail to thrive. So our health goes down. We get weaker. It's punishment for prisoners, and it was great if we could make them weaker. They would bow to whatever the law said, and they would accept more. They were less problematic, as it were. So, giving them just giving them bread and water for a month was a serious punishment. When I was a kid in school, though, we used to, every once in a while, the teacher would come out with scissors, colored paper, and paste. That ever happened in art class for you? You'd get scissors, colored paper, and paste. Yeah. Okay, well, we weren't supposed to cut each other, and we were supposed to do some art, and we all did. And we were given one instruction from the teacher. Don't eat the paste. And there was always some kid in school who ate the paste. I remember the kid in my class who would. He also ate pencil. He also ate pencil tips and pencil erasers. I don't know what was going on with him, but he used to eat the paste from school. But you were told, don't eat the paste. Do you know how to make paste by any chance?
I don't.
Okay, paste is made
Don't horses have something to do with that?
No, that's glue.
Okay.
That's glue. Paste is a vegan product. It's made with starch and water. That's all you take. You just take flour and water and mix them together. You have paste. If you want to put up wallpaper paste, if you want to put up wallpaper, you use wallpaper paste. It's just flour and water. It makes a paste. Looks kind of like oatmeal. And you probably could use oatmeal to hang wallpaper, but it would be a little lumpy.
What was that stuff we used to do? Paper mache? Wasn't that something? I feel like I remember something in school where we were pasting. I think it was pasting stuff. So maybe we were making that. I remember there was some kind of mixture.
I don't know, but I remember the construction
when you're doing paper mache, you're doing like really watered down paste, right? Yeah, it's watered down paste. So the teacher told us don't eat the paste, which I thought was interesting because most of the vegan doctors in the world today tell us to eat paste.
Right, basically.
And I'm going, something's not adding up here. It's tasteless. I don't care how dedicated you are to your health, or your performance or anything else. How long would you eat food that was absolutely tasteless?
Right.
Like I wouldn't want that diet of tasteless food. I want to be like, wow, this food is awesome. These are the best mangoes of the year. These are the best figs of the year. This is the best persimmon I've had since last year. This is the best pomegranate. This is the best, wow, blueberries, raspberries, and on through all the, the white peaches and on through it all. So I just like get excited every time I get a new tangerine or something. So I'm thinking the doctors are actually trying to tell us to eat paste, but our school teachers raised us telling us don't eat paste, and it's punishment in jail to eat paste. And it's funny, like we know not to eat the paste, but if we add sugar to the paste, then it's okay because then it's pastry.
Right. Oh, I never thought of that.
Or if we add eggs to it, then it's okay because then it's pasta. And
that kind of has paste in it. That's interesting.
And if we take eggs and sugar and maybe a couple other little treats and throw it in Spain, then it's called a pastel. It's a cookie. And I don't think they're hiding the paste part in the name very well. I think they really should be more creative and hide the paste fact, because we're not supposed to eat paste. We're not designed. The idea of eating paste isn't appealing to anybody, and I think we've been sold a line of goods. So I created 80-10-10 to show people that we could eat the 80-10-10 diet, eat a appropriate amount of carbohydrates for human beings, appropriate amount of fat, appropriate amount of sugar, appropriate amount of protein, And we could do it on foods that are so delicious and delectable. They're actually our natural food. It's food that we get excited about when we see it. Kids get excited when they see fruit. They know that's what's good for us. And it's to me very exciting stuff.
Yes, and I'm like the same way. I get excited at different fruits, especially when they're nice and ripe. Like when you mentioned mango, I'm like, that's what I'm getting ready to have for lunch, but I only have one soft, this one that's ripe enough. Um, I was gonna say too. So, are there some fruits like I guess when you're looking at the 10%, like what do you recommend for the 10% of fat and the 10% of protein? Like, can an avocado be like the fat, but also be part of the I guess their fruit technically too. Like what do you kind of eat, I guess, typically in a day, like that that corresponds with the 80-10-10 to let people know?
For my own self, I find my digestion is happiest when I eat really simple meals.
Hmm.
So, I mean,
I learned I was hearing your thing, I think it was on Instagram and YouTube about mono meals.
I like to make food. I make stuff for my family and for myself, but I tend to eat breakfast and lunch very, very simple. I tend to eat just peaches or just bananas or just figs or just mangoes or just whatever's in season at the moment. Um, Today, I just happened to get lucky a couple days ago and ran across the world's best figs that I've ever had. And apparently right now, this is not only a very good year for figs, but this is the time. And so I got fantastic figs. And so I had figs for breakfast, all I wanted. And then I had figs for lunch, all I wanted. And actually, they were
Mhm.
so good that although I had lots of other good fruit in the house, all I wanted was those figs. And it's what my wife and daughter both chose too. They said, yeah, we'll have figs. Let's have figs. They had figs for breakfast. They had bananas for lunch. Everybody was happy. Now it's dinner time, and tonight I made a fruit cocktail. I cut up I cut up a Piel de Sapo melon, a great big one that was just it's season for them too. September is melon season, and so I took a big Piel de Sapo melon, got some got some just spectacular pineapple. I've got melons that are I'm sorry, I got mangoes that are called Osteen mangoes at the moment, and Osteen mangoes are among the delicious ones, among the really best ones. So we're getting Osteen mangoes. I took the three, I chopped them all up small enough to make a fruit cocktail, added some raspberries, tossed it all together, had a couple of bowls of that, and it just felt I don't know what to call that. That combination, ambrosia, nirvana. It was just spectacular. I felt like I could have kept eating that if I wanted, but there will be a salad after I finish this talk, and the salad is already made. It's just lettuce. I chopped up romaine lettuce. I chopped up 8 or 9 different types of tomatoes because, as I said, I live right next to the tomato guy, and he grows 18 kinds of
Oh,
tomatoes.
look.
So tonight we're eating some really nice classic orange vine, classic yellow vine, uh, some red cherry tomatoes,
Mm,
some
love
cocoa
those.
buff brown. Oh God, I love the brown ones. Some tiger stripe, actually they're called lemon tiger tomatoes. So we got a bunch of different kinds of tomatoes going in, chopped up, and then I just took avocado and diced it and mixed it in. And by the time I tossed that with the tomatoes, the acid in the tomato emulsifies the avocado enough so that it turns into its own salad dressing just by tossing the salad.
Hmm.
And I don't have to add anything else, but if I was gonna, I would maybe squeeze on some lemon or lime or orange or tangerine or something, just squeeze a little bit on the top. Uh, but probably we had enough fruit, which is the ticket. That's the goal, right? Is to have enough fruit so that you can enjoy a savory meal and it doesn't have to be sweet. It can truly be savory. You can finish the meal and not be looking around for something sweet because you've already satisfied that urge.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the ticket. That's the ticket to satiation, is to eat enough fruit so that you're not craving something at the end of your meal.
That makes a lot of sense too. And I tend to eat like fruit all throughout the day just because it's what kind of helps me keep energy. And then at night is when I eat the eat a salad too. So I've kind of have followed that pattern that you set out, and it really seems to work well, like for digestion. Since I started eating one thing at a time, it has really
Hmm.
changed it for me, because I used to get tired. I would try to eat a variety of fruits, like I'd eat an orange and then some watermelon and and now I'm just like, I stick with the same fruit. And since I saw that video, and I'm like, it really does make a difference. And
Really does. Really does.
I don't get tired. I get energized, it seems like, because I guess my body's not working as hard and then at night I'm supposed to get tired. So it makes sense. I tend to eat my like a larger meal. People say that's probably not the best, but you know, when you're eating this way, it's not like you've ate a cheeseburger for lunch and a
Yeah, the rules are different.
steak
You, you
for.
can't you can't take the mainstream rules and apply them to a raw food diet. They don't apply.
Hmm.
You have to know where they don't apply, but there's lots of places where they don't apply. You don't need 8 glasses of water a day. You don't need to be so crazy about not eating late at night. You don't have to have breakfast as your most important meal of the day. You can, but you certainly don't have to. Uh, there's a lot of things. We're not trying to eat as long after exercise as possible to try to drop an extra quarter pound. You want to eat as soon as you finish exercising in order to enhance recovery so that you can be active again. There's a lot of rules that simply just don't apply in a raw food diet.
And I guess right now the thing that is so, I guess, crazy is the craze of the low carb, high, the high protein, because and higher fat. It's like I've learned so much just by reading and watching different like people who know about nutrition like you. And the fat is actually the problem with a lot of the conditions, like you said, like, well, type 2 diabetes. People think it's an overload of sugar, when in reality, it's too much fat to begin with, and then
The
it makes
sugar is a
fat.
symptom of too much fat, for sure. The type 2 diabetes need not exist at all. I've never had a type 2 diabetic that took more than 48 hours to get completely insulin free. We've dealt
Wow.
with hundreds of them. Um, Cancer is an issue of too much fat. Heart disease is an issue of too much fat. Diabetes is an issue of too much fat. Most digestive disorders are problems with too much fat. We, as you say, most illnesses. Everything isn't about food. I don't think for a second that everything's about food. But if your food isn't right, it's wrong. If your exercise isn't right, it's wrong. If you're not getting enough sleep, it's wrong. And doing things wrong is never going to turn out right. You mentioned the ketosis approach, and we got to at least say that over the last 120 years, every 20 years, a high protein diet has come out. So there's one in 1880 and 1900 and 1920, and it's been a fad over and over and over again. Um, late 40s and the 70s and the I'm sorry, in late 40s and the early 60s and in the 80s, the 2000, and now again. And the interesting thing is this time they're being pretty blatant about it. They're actually calling it ketosis. But if you know anything about the English language, osis at the end of a word has a specific meaning, and it means an abnormal condition. That's what an osis is. It's an abnormal condition.
Okay.
Uh, in the world of medicine, we've known about ketosis for a long time. 70 years or so, maybe 80 years. We've understood about ketosis. And ketosis is not just an abnormal condition, but it's an unsustainable abnormal condition. We go into failure to thrive. And in this unsustainable condition, yes, you lose weight because you're failing to thrive, but also all sorts of body chemistry things are going awry and making your body chemistry just go off unsustainably. So doctors have used ketosis for a variety of things for a long time, putting people into ketosis or getting them out of ketosis for a lot of different objectives. But it's always been done as a temporary thing. It was never ever conceived of as a lifestyle. And pretty much the people in the ketosis approaches have shown us each of the last 7 times every 20 years that the program isn't sustainable. And they tried it back in the 60s. You could buy liquid protein diet in the grocery stores, late 50s, early 60s, and people tried living off of the liquid protein and they died. People died. They took it off the shelves because it was so dangerous. But you can still do it now, but you have to have it prescribed by a doctor. Now it's not so dangerous if they prescribe it somehow. But people were dying doing it themselves. It's an unsustainable condition. So I can't recommend ketosis as a health practice for anyone. And, you know, this is something that came up in the very early part of our conversation, which is, what is the ketone diet? The ketone diet is, you know, the average person on a standard Western diet is eating about 40 to 45% of their calories from carbohydrate. And if we cut that out, you've just cut out almost half the calories you take for the day. Right. This is fascinating. If you're trying to lose weight and you cut out half the calories you eat, you should lose weight, right? Mm-hmm. Hopefully you'll lose weight at that point. Now they say, oh no, but now you can eat meat in unlimited quantities. And I go, well, yeah, but weren't you doing that before? Before you cut out the carbs, you were already eating all the meat you wanted. You weren't holding back.
You're just taking the good stuff off your plate now.
Oh yeah, but you can have all the butter and all the mayonnaise you want. I go, yeah, but there's nothing to put it on. What do you know, you got no bread. There's nothing. What are you going to put? Mayonnaise on a slice of ham? I mean, and then just roll it up and eat it? Like, no. So people were already eating all the mayonnaise and butter they wanted. Now they got no bread to put it on. They were already eating all the meat they wanted. And now they don't really eat that much more. So they've cut out half their calories and they do, in fact, lose weight. Okay. That's understandable. We didn't do that in 80-10-10. What we did is we reduced the amount of fat in the diet and replace it with carbohydrate intentionally by eating more fruit. You asked about fats, and yes, you get fats from fruits and vegetables. You get about 7 to 8% of your calories are fat in an average fruit and vegetable. If you eat a diet of nothing but fruits and vegetables, no nuts, no seeds, no avocado, no olives, no nothing that's fatty, you're still going to be getting about 7 or 8% of your total calories are going to come from fat if you do an analysis of what's in a head of lettuce. I mean, there's a reason they call it butter lettuce, right? So, but you certainly can add in nuts and seeds and avocados and other fatty fruits. You certainly can, and I do. I don't shun fat. I'm not looking to avoid fat entirely. I just don't want to eat it in the overabundance of the standard Western diet where they're typically eating 45% of their calories from fat. It's interesting because the studies on low fat diet where they cut the fat to 35 or 30, they conclude that low fat diets don't help, but those aren't low fat diets. That's still triple to quadruple the amount I'm recommending,
Hmm.
and triple to quadruple the amount that most vegan doctors are recommending, and triple to quadruple the amount that most sports scientists are recommending. This isn't a novel idea. This is an idea that has been shown to reverse diabetes first in 1959 in the American Journal American Medical Association. They showed us that if we cut fats and raise carbs, we eliminate diabetes. It's
Hmm.
not a new idea. That's 64 years ago. And there's a great YouTube video, How to Become a Diabetic in 6 hours. If you haven't watched it, it's well worth it. And it shows quite clearly that you increase the fat in your diet, you become a diabetic almost instantly.
Hmm.
We understand that it reduces the amount of oxygen that the body can get, and this leaves us prone to cancer. We understand that it reduces the amount of oxygen the heart can get, and this leads to heart disease. We understand it decreases the amount of sugars that the muscles can get, and this leads to just plain tiredness and not great athletic recovery from activity. We want to reduce the fat in our diet. We need to do it. The way to do it is to increase the simple sugars from fruit, not refined sugars. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the simple sugars found in fruit, glucose and fructose. These are the sugars for which human cells are designed. Every cell of the body utilizes glucose for fuel, and more than 90% of the cells also equally accept fructose as fuel. These are the two sugars found in fruits and vegetables. So this is where we want to lead the bulk of our diet. That's our food. That's our fuel. It's what we run on. Do we get great nutrition in the process? Do we get all the micronutrients, the minerals, the vitamins, the enzymes, coenzymes? Sure, we get all that stuff in fruits and vegetables. Everybody already knows that. We don't have to start looking around to see if fruits and vegetables are good for us. They've been time honored good for us. They're our natural food. It's that part we don't have to prove the nutrition yet again. Studies don't need to be done.
Hmm.
They've been done. It's already textbook material that fruits and vegetables are good for us. We don't have to study this.
Right.
This is known.
And it's like a lot of people say, well, aren't you getting too much sugar when you eat, fruit? Because one of the things I did wrong in the beginning, I'll say, like I ended up after 6 months back in 2019, I thought that I needed to eat like cooked food to pick up weight because I had lost a lot, like I got below where I felt comfortable. And like then I learned that like just eating more food is going to do the same thing. Like you don't need to put rice and beans in you. All I had to do was really increase the fruit that I was eating, which is
Sure.
what I wanted to eat. But when I started, I was still had a lot of the myths that you shouldn't have any sugar. So I was trying to fill up on lettuce and cucumber, like,
Yeah,
and
that won't work.
right. And I was like missing the whole fruit part of it. So I'm glad that you have so much, information out there to help people understand this and to really kind of set the record straight, on how we're supposed to eat because there's too many misconceptions and myths that people say, well, they say this and they say that, but there's no study
So
to say it.
no, so the answer is it the question invariably comes up, isn't it too much sugar? And the answer is no, it's exactly the right amount of sugar. It's the amount of sugar we're designed to run on. And anything less is too little sugar. And
That makes
so when you get too little sugar, bad things happen because you still need to get your calories, but you're going to tend to get it from fat. Fat is a problem when we get our calories from fat. I mean, we clog our arteries. We make it harder for our body to pick up oxygen, for our cells to pick up oxygen. We block the function of insulin, and so the glucose gets trapped in our bloodstream. We end up as diabetics with sustained elevated blood sugar levels. But when you eat a low fat diet, sugars go into your bloodstream and then right to your cells to function as fuel. they don't stay in your bloodstream.
Hmm.
And so my blood sugar levels have never been better. They're, I'm always in a healthy range for blood sugar. And as I say, I've helped hundreds of diabetics get completely insulin free, uh, including a few type 1 diabetics, uh, due to the
Wow.
diagnosis of type 1, the definition of type 1. It's possible for type 1 sometimes to get off of insulin completely. Otherwise, what we see for those who can't get completely free, we'll take a typical type 1 diabetic and reduce insulin use compared to carbohydrate intake by 75%. So we can
Oh,
show a 75% improvement even for people who manufacture no insulin of their own, um, by improving what's called insulin sensitivity, which is done by reducing the fat in the diet.
that is so amazing, and that's one of the reasons I started, this show, because of all the health changes I had. And then
Mhm.
I love hearing people, who've changed just one thing in their health or a couple of things. But with you, you're changing so many people's lives. Like, I know we could probably go on forever, but I'm sure you're a busy person here, and I don't want to keep you like,
Well, I
I could.
appreciate you making the time for me.
I'm
Uh,
excited to
I
to
really do
hear how we
appreciate you
can
making
work
the
with you.
time. I am training coaches to do what I do. It's called an 80-10-10 certified coach program. Uh, I do run various festivals and seminars. I'll be doing Costa Rica in February. I'll be doing Nicaragua for the month of January. Hopefully, some people may want to join me down there. I'm going to guess you'll provide some links. I'm not even going to bother telling people about food and sport in our programs. I'm
Oh, you
excited
can
about the
tell us a
coaching
little bit about
program. Most of all, I'm really excited about the coaching program because when I look out into the world of raw foods today and I see the top 100 leaders and realize that almost half of them have been trained by me at some point in the past. It's kind of fun to see that and to finally now have an official training program for future coaches. Uh, the internet now makes it possible for future coaches to find clients while they sleep. It's so easy to find clients these days. You don't have to live on the road anymore. Uh, you can just do it all from the comfort of your own phone. So I'm
yeah.
excited about the coach program. I'm more excited about life, I think, than ever. I'm looking forward to this year's national championships. I'm hoping to win the national championships in powerlifting in my group.
I was just
And
about to ask you about that.
Awesome.
I heard
Congrats.
another.
yeah, well, I'm not going to tell you up front I'm going to win. I'm working against some stiff competition, but I full well intend to make the podium. But it would be very nice to win.
And you've been eating raw food for how many years now? Like
Yeah, like almost 45 years.
45 years. And do you mind telling your age?
I'm 70.
Wow. And doing
Wow, you look good,
powerlifting,
dude.
guys. These people are walking around, can barely walk. And, it's just, it's so impressive. And like, so we can join, like, there's a coaching program. And I know I saw that on your website. And then I know
Yeah.
you have Instagram, and you have, I believe, do you have Facebook too? I think.
Yeah, a
Where
little bit. I don't do a lot of social media myself, but I do have a staff person helps me with social media. But I write all my emails and I answer every email I get. I'm old fashioned. I still do email.
I love it. I'm gonna link
Huh?
everything, to
Oh,
on
bless your heart. Thank you so much. Yeah.
your link
Uh,
tree and
you
everything.
know, you know what's become surprisingly, the perhaps the most popular thing I'm doing nowadays is, um, more and more people are coming up with the diagnosis of osteoporosis and they want to beat it. And there's nothing out there to beat osteoporosis, but I've got a program that will actually reverse osteoporosis. And for people who are willing to uh, invest a little bit in themselves and their health, I can show them how to completely reverse osteoporosis, which is a way cool thing because the medical people have nothing. So
That's
with
amazing.
the current estimates are that half the women over 50 have osteoporosis already, and I think that's a gross underestimate. I think it's a much higher number than that, to be quite honest.
Yes,
So
definitely.
if you haven't had your osteoporosis test, it's probably worth getting it. And at least then you either know that you're in the clear or you know you need to do something.
Hmm. And if you're definitely, you know, that's a big thing. When you talk to people about reversing things, a lot of people don't think it's even possible, you know, and that's, you're giving
Yeah,
them a
well, it
new.
takes more than a diet change to reverse osteoporosis for
Hmm.
sure. It's a lifestyle thing, but it can, and it can be done. I've done it with a bunch of people, continuing to do it, and it's becoming, I don't know, maybe it's the next epidemic. I don't know. There's an awful lot of osteoporosis going around. I'm getting men coming to me now with osteoporosis, and that's rare. That's
Wow.
rare. So um, I'm excited about being able to run that program as well, and just coach people through reversing osteoporosis. It's a treat to be able to do it.
And
Awesome.
for them to sign up for something like that, or your coaching,
They
would that
they
be
just shoot me an email, and I'll set
okay?
up a WhatsApp call with them and talk to them about it, find out exactly what they want, give them different options of how they want to run the program. Kind of like a beginner, intermediate, advanced program, depend what they want,
Hmm.
and and then find a way to work with them either through WhatsApp and email or Zoom or whatever we got to do. All
Excellent. I
over the world. Yeah,
help
all
people
over
with
the world.
fasting too. I think I have seen.
Yeah, running a fasting program in Costa Rica for the month of February through the first 2 weeks of March. It's a 6 week program. I've done it annually since 1996. Before that, for 10 years, I ran a year round program for fasting at a clinic, but my lifestyle just didn't let me do that. And I wanted to run groups.
Hmm.
I find it better for the fasters to come as a group than it is to come as an individual. Just way more support for each person in the event when they come together and finish together than when they it's kind of like every man for himself when you're at a hotel, right? Like you don't meet everybody else even. So
Right. I'm a huge
this
fan of fasting.
Yeah,
fantastic. Glad to hear it.
I
Really glad to hear it. I am too. It's something I've done in my own life.
Me
I
too.
try to live my life in a way that fasting isn't required, but still, nonetheless, sometimes, anytime you're not yourself, it's a good time to skip a meal
I'm
and get
about
some
to do
rest.
something I like to call Oktoberfast.
There you go. Exactly. That's a smart move. Good word.
Yeah.
Good
go
word.
fast. I like it. I was thinking of your next book name could be "Stop Eating Paste," right?
Yeah, stop eating paste. Well, I did a book called Grain Damage back
Yes,
in the
grain.
90s. I wrote the very first book ever written that was anti-grain,
I
and
love it.
now there's about 100 of them out there. But this was the very first one. Nobody else was willing to attack that monster and say, that was like a god. And I'm going, no, 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 grain damage. There's no way we can't stay healthy eating a grain-based diet. There's no way. It's not sustainable. Uh, we can grow we can grow more food on trees than we ever can on plains of wheat. We're less likely to have crop failures. We hold the soil down. We make more oxygen in the air. All the right things happen. We produce between 2 and 5 times the calories off of fruit trees than we can from a field of wheat, and on and on and on. All the right things happen when we eat fruit off of trees. The nutrients come from deep down in the subsoil rather than just eating up the topsoil. I mean, all the way around, it's a better program. So I'm going to go with fruit hanging on fruit trees. Thanks.
I
Right.
second that.
Exactly. I don't even, like it's funny, but there's such, like you said, just such a high misunderstanding about eating a lot of, that the rice and things like that, and cooked food is
No, I
like
mean,
has this
if you
big.
can't eat fruit, you got to eat.
Hmm.
I mean, you're going to eat. It's gonna, you're in a lifeboat and there's no food. It's going to get ugly. But
Right, you
but
got to eat something.
yeah, you
If
got
you
to eat
have a
something,
choice.
right? So at that point, I understand why people eat starches because when there's no fruit available, well, you may well eat starch. But
Hmm.
until you get to that situation where there's no fruit available, eating starch, I mean, I just see paste. I just see wallpaper paste. I really, like, I'm not going to eat the paste. It's not food.
I will
I
never
mean,
hear pasta the same way again without calling it
exactly.
food.
Right.
And that used to be one of my favorite. Like all of this
Yeah,
was
me
my,
too. Me too.
but
Listen, I was raised on a standard American diet. I ate everything and I loved everything. I don't know what I was thinking. I can't judge myself harshly. I'm not going to judge anybody else harshly. Um,
exactly.
but when the light goes on, it goes on, and I
Yeah.
can't turn it off at this point. So I know too much to go back. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not lured. I'm not tempted. It's like, it's like if you had a girlfriend that just drove you crazy every second of the day, if you had a boyfriend that hurt you every night, like, and then you got like the most magnificent boyfriend in the whole wide world, and you go, do you crave the old one? No, not at all. You
Right.
just don't. When you find something better, you don't crave the old one that was worse in
Yeah.
anything. Look, when was the last time you wrote a postcard?
Right.
Like you just don't do it anymore. It's too easy to send a text. It's too easy to WhatsApp somebody or whatever, however you do it these days, right? Like you're not sending postcards.
Exactly.
We just don't do that. So
Hmm.
when you find a better way, when was the last time you got up to change the channels? No, you use the remote. I'm okay with that, but I'm also staying fit. I'm not going to just sit in the couch and push buttons all day.
Yeah.
Right. I
But
gotta watch doing that at my computer. I liked your video on how to sit in the chair. I said, I was like, oh my goodness, I feel so much more comfortable. I forgot. And you used to be a chiropractor as well, right? For many
yes,
years. So
ma'am, 20 years private practice.
that's a great video for me because I sit in the chair all day and I was like, wow, I don't think I've ever felt that comfortable in a chair. So
Yeah,
check
you got
that
to
out.
sit back, you got to put the weight in the right places, and all of a sudden you can sit regally and be comfortable for hours on end. We're made to sit, but we got to sit properly. Thanks for
Definitely.
saying. Yeah, this is kind of stuff, when I'm working with athletes, I'm working with their mechanics. So I work with athletes from every sport because I'm not a specialist in a sport. I'm not coaching sport. I'm coaching movement. I'm coaching performance. I'm teaching people how to be stronger, how to be faster, jump higher, how to generate more force in their movements by being streamlined, no extraneous movements, and that allows for peak performance. So you always notice when somebody does something really well, it looks effortless. It's because there's
Hmm.
nothing extraneous, and so this is kind of I have to thank Dr. Joseph Toth for that. He was my college gymnastics teacher. He was also a doctor of kinesiology and a kinesiology instructor. And he talked to us all the time about our efficiency of movement and the effectiveness of various angles and angular momentum. And I'm going, I wanted to just learn some move in gymnastics. And he's talking to me about physics. But it turns out that he was right, and I ended up using what he's taught me for the rest of my entire career. So thank you, Dr. Joseph Toth from back in 1971.
It's so funny
Nice.
how you have these influential people in your life, and then you're that person in so many other people's life. So,
Well, last night I was doing an interview and mentioned that I know lots of people who have changed their diet, way more than me. I said I've hardly changed my diet only a few times, and and the Harriet says to me, she goes, but you've helped thousands and thousands of people change their diet. You've changed more diets than probably almost anybody. Anyway, yeah, I didn't mean it like that. I meant personally me myself, but it was kind of funny. Yeah, I've helped a lot of people change their diet. It's fun. When I was a little kid, I went to New York City one time. I was in Manhattan, and and there was a lot more pedestrians back then than there is now, and we were walking with the flow of pedestrians. And there was this guy on the street corner standing on a box, what they called a soapbox back then. And he's standing on the soapbox and he's blabbering. And I don't even think he was making any sense. I don't know if he was. He might have been announcing the end of the world, or I don't know what it was, but I didn't really listen. And everybody was walking by and nobody was paying him any attention. They knew not to listen. And I'm honored every time anybody listens. I'm honored when people let me into their lifestyle. When people are willing to change their food off of something I suggest. I mean, this is huge honor to me. I'm really never lose track of the sight. I never lose track of the fact that this is a tremendous honor that people are willing to listen. I never thought in a million years I'd be telling people get enough sleep, stay fit, eat fruits and vegetables. I mean, that's a pretty simple message. But as a doctor, I customize it for each individual, because every individual comes with different problems and different needs and hears things differently, and we all learn differently. So getting the message across, there's a certain art to it for sure. As Dr. Herbert Shelton said, the science, the art, and the philosophy. And we need to have all of that come together, but never lose sight of the fact that it's a tremendous honor to be here with you. I thank you for the platform. We appreciate you sharing time, helping me get a message out. Hopefully it helps you get a message out as well. And I look forward to spending more time with you in the future.
Oh, that's
awesome.
Great. Thank you for taking so much time with us. And I really literally could just answer you questions. I had to keep watching how long I was going, because I've from watching your video, it's like I have a celebrity here. So I kept running more questions
at you. You're telling me I'm wordy, I think is what you're telling me. I talk too much.
No, I love it. I'd rather get someone that's given us a lot of
words we need to hear.
Yes.
Well, if we need to do it again, there can always be a part 2. I look forward to seeing what you all do with it and how you link it out there. If you let me know about the links and whatnot, and I'll tell all the appropriate people from my end how to put this interview, to best use.
Okay, I'll send you over the file, and
super.
Thank you. Super. I really appreciate you coming on, and I'll link all of your
Thank you so much for being here.
Like I said, I'm really honored to have the opportunity, and thank you for helping me get the word out.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Everyone, have a great evening. Thank you, everyone watching. And I will see you guys on Monday, Meatless Monday.
There you go.
Mañana.
Meatless every day, right? Have a great evening, you guys.
Exactly.
Thanks, Ron, for being our excellent co-host and setting up the stream, our producer from J&J Video Reacts, and Dr. Doug
Really
Graham.
Appreciate both of you.
A blessing. Thank you.
We appreciate you. You want to end it with the poem, Jen?
Yes.
All right.
Eat more fruit.
I'm gonna go eat that mango. I can't wait. Thank you. If we can become a plant-based nation, we could get off all our medication. We want to keep doing things like we were, donating to organizations claiming to fight for a cure. But the cure is already in front of our eyes, and it's time for us to wake up and realize. We may not want to believe we have control. It's easier for most of us to metaphorically live in a hole. So many stories of how being plant-based has reversed disease. It's funny that we can't stop eating meat with ease. We want to continue to look for the answer, yet people have reversed even cancer. I think finally as a nation, it's time to give people the truthful information. Your hard-earned money is what you pay to take your medicine day after day. Sadly, there's a lot of money being made in people staying sick. This has to finally make something click. We have to have this revelation that a cure means not selling medication. There's so many myths and misconceptions, but it's eye-opening once you make the connections. That meat and dairy are causing insulin resistance. It's not sugar and carbs causing diabetes, for instance. Scientifically, our bodies are not set up like carnivores. We model those who eat plants. If you can heal, why not give it a chance? You follow your car's owner's manual for what gas it takes, yet for our bodies without care, we feed it steaks.
That's like giving an unleaded car diesel to drink. Our bodies will reject it, don't you think? I'm not here to tell you what to do, but to be a voice, that when it comes to your health, you have the choice. With just a few adjustments to your diet, I can help if you just want to try it. I've found testimonials that people have reversed every ailment and disease by simply eliminating meat, eggs, milk, and cheese. There's a tasty substitute for all the things you already eat. You can get all your nutrients without eating meat. Save the animals, the environment, and yourself just by making a few different selections off the grocery store shelf. It's never too late. I've seen it work at all age ranges. It's my passion, and I can't wait to hear about your positive health changes. It's time for the world to wake up and heal, and you can start with your very next meal.